This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 876, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you. My name is Connor Kilpatrick, and sitting in for my co-host Josh Flanagan is Dr. Ryan Haupt.
It's me, Ryan.
And we are here for iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 876. Every week, one of us picks a book they like the best from their stack of comics, called it the Pick of the Week. We talk about that book and other books from the week, the Patron Pick, hopefully listener mail if we've got time. And here is your spoiler warning. This is a review show, so exercise some caution when you pick your books up and read them before the show. I don't know what's going on. Ryan's here.
I don't either. You're giving me a weird energy right now.
I'm tired. You're sick. I've had a long day.
You'd think this was a morning show and we weren't caffeinated enough, but no, this is not. This is an evening record. We've just had long days before it. Maybe
on cold medicine.
Maybe when we're done recording, we can go out and listen to some smooth jazz. What do you say to that, Connor?
I'm into it. What's the pick this week, Ryan?
Well, the pick this week is all about smooth jazz because it's Deep Cuts #1. Story by Kyle Higgins and Joe Clark. Art by Daniel Baruth. Colors by Igor Monti. And letters by Hassam Otsme Athau. A name I know I've said before on the show and hopefully butchered at least consistently. Yeah, this was an interesting week. I got my books read more quickly than I usually do because I wasn't feeling well, so I kind of just told my wife, hey, can I just plop on the couch and read comics after dinner? And she said yes. And so that's what I did. And I got through my stack more smoothly than I usually do. And I read all the books and I was like, I don't quite know what the pick is. And there were a couple of books that were in the running, but none of them were a huge standout. And so I actually legitimately slept on it. And I woke up in the morning, having moved the bed from the couch. I didn't sleep on the couch. And the book that stuck with me the most was Deep Cuts #1. It's the story of a young clarinetist in New Orleans who is trying to follow in his father's legacy as a musician instead of working as a porter in the docks, and gets kind of tangled up with this trumpet player who ends up being sort of a scoundrel, and it sort of just works his way through the music and brothel scene in a 1917 era New Orleans. And I had no expectations for this book. I read it mostly because it was in running for the Patron Pick. But I love New Orleans. New Orleans is maybe, I would say it's in my top 3 cities in the U.S. if not the world.
Sure.
It's a place I really enjoy visiting. My mom lived there in college, so I grew up eating her gumbo that she would make from her time living there. Some of my best friends today still live there. It's a city that really has captured my heart in a lot of ways, and I think it's one of the more unique places on the planet. I was not anticipating a book set there, especially a comic about music. To me, I think the comparison that I would make to this book is it's almost like Ratatouille, where Ratatouille is a movie which is moving pictures and sound, but it's about taste, right? Whereas this is a comic book which is words and images, but about music. And I think this actually sort of captured what it's like to play music, what it's like to be in a live show, what it's like to be the audience of a live show. And I just thought that the way that this kid, Ace is the moniker he takes on as a jazz musician, kind of fumbles his way through the music scene. And because he has integrity, because he doesn't want to screw people over to get to the top, the way he ends up making allies and not allies is sort of, I don't know, I found it very interesting. I really found myself engaged. It's a double-sized, if not triple-sized book.
Triple-sized.
Yeah, triple-sized. And I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that length. I really felt like this was smooth sailing all the way through. And I just, what did you think, Connor?
What a weird book. Not content-wise, just what the fuck? I was reading this book. First of all, I initially skipped past it because I saw Kyle Higgins' name, and right now, almost everything he's putting out is related to his Radiant Black universe. So
this might be. We don't know. It's 1917.
Right, I just thought, oh, it's another Radiant Black book. I didn't even look at the cover, and then, like you said, it was in the leaderboard for Patron Pick. So I looked at it. I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. Started reading it, and I'm reading this book. I think it's around 60 pages, and I'm just waiting for the turn, right? Waiting for the twist. This kid's gonna fall on a radioactive well and get clarinet powers or something, right? Yep. I kept waiting or he's gonna be a vampire. The trumpet player he befriends is gonna turn out to be a vampire or something, and just never happened. And it's just the story of this kid in New Orleans in 1917 who wants to be in a jazz band and has to deal with all the trials and tribulations of wanting to join a jazz band that at the time are playing mostly in brothels. And it was terrific. I mean, it really was a lot of fun, and I don't know where this came from or why it's happening, but I'm enjoying it. And I think there are going to be more, and I'm looking forward to whatever this exploration of. Is it going to be exploration of jazz or music or what? Because it's called Deep Cuts, which is.
And I was
interesting.
thinking of you guys, the iFanboy guys, the original trio, especially with like characters like Johnny Two Fingers. Like, well, that's straight out of Goodfellas. That's great,
Right? But also just sort of old musician names, like all those guys, especially old jazz and blues players, had fun nicknames like that. But it felt very lived in, and it felt like the research was done in terms of how guys like this would have lived and what playing would have been like, and what the brothel / party scene was in these black neighborhoods of New Orleans in the turn of the century.
Right.
Between
Charles Ace lives with his grandmother, who he has to hide the fact that he says he's playing at a women's social club, and then at one point it's found out that he's playing at a brothel, and like her attitude towards that, where like it really comes down to like she really just wants to be able to hear his music, but she can't hear it if he's playing at a brothel. And I don't know. There was a lot of heart in this book.
Yeah, it's not like there's no crime, right? There's no like there is a crime technically speaking, but because someone's wages are being robbed, but there's not like a heist.
Wage theft is one of the most common crimes in America,
right? It's not like there's a heist. There's not like there's an armed robbery. There's not like anything action oriented happen. It's just the story of this kid, and it's a really satisfying arc where he, it's sort of like a coming of age tale where he starts off as a very sort of naive waif in this world, and by the end of it he's got a lot more experience, maybe in a way he doesn't want to have it because he's had his money robbed from him.
Well, it's also he idolizes the musicians based on their performances, and then when he actually gets to know them, he realizes that like, oh, the quote unquote confirmed bachelor piano player is a guy who knew my dad, and this prostitute Ethel like is a really sweet woman who like cares about me, and so like, he ends up really shifting his. Who does he look up to? Who does he turn to when he needs help and advice and counsel? And he turns away from the guy who's just about the showmanship, and he'll screw anybody over if it means he gets the gig. And it ends up, it's interesting to watch how that plays out.
Right. It was fun. I really like the bit where he first gets to play with the piano player, and it's a big moment of triumph for him. And people love the music. And then the piano player's like, "Yeah, that was terrible. So let's not do that ever again." And because it was it's normally it's like this is it. The kid's like a prodigy, right? He's terrific, but no, he's like you've got talent, but that was awful. So let's work on how to not be awful. And so it was really surprising.
He's got talent, and he's got a good instrument because he inherited his dad's clarinet.
Yeah.
And I really like the opening sequence where like he plays through the window, and the guy that he impresses through the window says, "How come I never heard you before?" And he says, "Well, the last gig you played, there wasn't a window at the venue." And I was like, "Man, that's like within the first 10 pages of the book." I was like, "That's really clever writing. It's just smart, clever, fun. It brings you into the world." It felt like you said, felt really lived in. Yeah,
right. It's interesting. I was expecting of all the books to need an image. Patented essay at the back. This one has one, but it's not about the book itself. And so I was like, "Well, why is this happening? Someone explain to me why this is happening." Because it's cool. This is so unlike what Image is publishing these days, and it hasn't published a book like this in a while. I mean, maybe Howard Chaykin's comic book history book is the closest this is like similar to.
And Kyle Higgins is a guy who seems I don't know Kyle Higgins from Adam, but he seems like a guy who really embraces the multimedia aspect of working in comics. So, a lot of the Radiant Black comics have like animated shorts or so like in-universe podcasts that exist and all these other things. So the fact that, they commissioned an in-universe song on the vibraphone, like that's I don't have any particular fondness for that instrument. I know how to read music-ish, but not well enough to like know what this song would sound like just by looking at the page. But like, it's cool that they did it.
Yeah. So it sounds like the co-writer Joe Clark is a music professor in Northwestern University. So that's, where the history of stuff comes from, but it's just interesting to see why this happened. And, Danilo Beirut, the artist, is really strong. I think the storytelling was really good. The character work was really good. It got, when the music kicked in, the art got a little bit more exaggerated. At no time did I think, "Oh, this is an artist not ready for prime time," which is what I think a lot sometimes when I read books from Image or Dark Horse.
Right. And it was the music scenes where I kind of got that ratted. This is obviously it's a grittier is the wrong word because this isn't like grim and gritty, but it's like but compared to something like Ratatouille, which is a kids movie, but the music scenes is where I got that sort of Ratatouille vibe, where it's like they're trying to find a way to put on the page the feeling of listening to, cool jazz music in the club or whatever, which is in similar ways to how they did, with Remy tasting different foods on screen. So I don't know. It literally came out of nowhere. I probably would not have read this if it hadn't been a pick of the week contender.
Patron pick. Yeah. I again, it wasn't on my
well,
radar.
It ended up being a pick of the week contender. It was a patron pick front runner. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for clarifying.
But yeah, I mean, I same thing. Like I just wouldn't right past it because I'm just not into the Radiant Black universe, and so I figured that's what it was. But I'm glad I didn't, and I'm glad I read it. And next issue is called "Sorry, but I Can't Take You," and so I guess we're who knows where this is going.
But the end of this issue says "end," so is it going to be a completely different story? Or are we going to see more of Ace's life? Like anything I'm cool with. Like I'm happy to see where this book goes. But I don't know what that next story is going to be.
Well, there's an image, and I'm looking at the digital version, so I don't know what this is paper-wise, but there's an image in the back of a woman at a piano, and it says 1928 in the back. So I'm sure, my guess is it's just an anthology of different music stories of the Black experience, as it says in the cover and in the back. So I'm guessing it's someone new. I'm guessing it's a whole new story. So we'll see.
I'm here for it. I'm sticking with it.
We'll see in May when the next issue comes out. So this week we had another DC. What is it called? I don't remember what they're called. What are these things called? DC
new. They're not branding it well because it's not on the cover of the book.
Well, another new DC book come out. It's Green Arrow #1, and I was dismayed to find that it is a miniseries. And in fact, it was originally supposed to be 6. Now they're increasing it to 12 issues. So that's something at least. But it's really a bummer that the DC is publishing so few books relatively to what they used to do. So many of the mid-list books and characters are not around, and this is another one that Green Arrow should have an ongoing book. But that's neither here nor there. So this is Joshua Williamson and Sean Isaacs. What was the book that Sean Isaacs drew that I really enjoyed? Was it? Oh, it was that Fantastic Four book. Fantastic Four, the Mark Russell Fantastic Four book, Through the Ages. That was really good.
Yes, that was good.
And so here we have it's Dawn of DC. That's the name of all these books, the Dawn of DC books. That's how long it took my Comixology app to open. It's having problems lately.
Wait, is this a steam-powered iPad problem, or is this a...
No, this is a back-end, whatever they're fucking doing is problem. It's not the iPad. So Dawn of DC, Green Arrow #1, Josh Williamson, Sean Isaacs. And I like this quite a bit.
I like this quite a bit, too.
A different take on the world of Oliver Queen. So we have the family back together through, whatever the Dark Crisis bullshit was. So now Connor Hawke is back alongside Roy Harper and Dinah Lance, and so they have their little Green Arrow family. Only the problem is that the dad, Green Arrow, is missing. And
I have other problems, but yes, that's a problem.
Right, that's the main problem. Is the it's like they have their family back except for the main guy. He's gone. And I liked that, and this is going to be an email question later on, assuming we get to it, but I liked that this was sort of a sci-fi take on Green Arrow.
Yeah, so there's sort of two parallel stories happening. One is, Green Arrow, Ollie Queen Green Arrow, not Connor Hawke Green Arrow, wakes up on the beach, stuck on an island again, but then he looks up and it's a sci-fi island. And then it gives us, a quick run-through, a double-page spread run-through of his history, and then we cut to his team, his family, Roy Harper, his former sidekick, Connor Hawke, his son, Dinah Lance, his lover, or wife, I guess. Wife can be a lover.
Who knows in the new continuity? Who knows?
And they're in Gotham. That's nitpick 1. And it's a minor nitpick. I don't really care that they're in Gotham. It just seems odd to not put a #1 issue with the Arrow family in Star City. Yeah. So we get kind of the typical street, very classic street level Green Arrow story, but without Green Arrow. And then we cut to, I guess, a world controlled by the Manhunters. Yeah,
something. It's we don't know what it is, but he's stuck there.
Well, those are like classic DC Manhunters.
Yeah, those are the Manhunters. I don't know if they're controlling the world or they're soldiers or who knows what. But he's running around in this sci-fi world that's with Leanne, right? That's his.
With Roy Harper's daughter, who was Cheshire.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that reunion happens between Roy and Leanne, his daughter. But then both her and Connor Hawke are sort of sci-fi teleported away, and she at least ends up in the sci-fi world, where Oliver Queen's clearly been there for a while because he's got a beard and he's got a different costume, and he knows the lay of the land, and he shoots these crazy arrows that have, what is it, like chainsaws on them, or what is it?
So they called it a chainsaw arrow, but it was clearly a circular saw. Nippic 2.
Yeah. It's a saw arrow.
No. Yeah, but he's got like a weird like lightsaber bow sort of thing. I don't know how else to describe it.
It was, I mean, not expected. I've been missing Green Arrow. I've been missing a Green Arrow book. I love Green Arrow, one of my favorite characters. And, this was not necessarily the Green Arrow book I was looking for, but it was really fun, and the execution was fun, and the art was super strong. I'm a big fan of Sean Isaacs. He's a solid superhero artist.
This almost had image number 1 problems where, like, I think if this had been a double-sized first issue, that might have edged out Deep Cuts as pick of the week, because it's like, it's this, third to last page when we see the new sci-fi Ollie Queen, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm into whatever that is, but then the book is over, and it's like, oh, well, if it kept going for another 20 pages, I might have wanted this as pick. All right, I have to tell you nitpick number 3, but it's my last nitpick.
Yep.
On the page where they're introducing the family, Roy Harper and Connor Hawke get their sort of logoized names, and it says, Roy Harper, aka Speedy, aka Arsenal, aka Red Arrow, Connor Hawke, aka Green Arrow, aka my son.
Yep.
And then the next one, it's Black Canary, and it uses her call sign, her code name, Black Canary, aka Dinah Lance. They switched it. It's not parallel storytelling, Connor.
Yeah, that is weird.
Bothered me.
Well, Oliver is narrating the book, so I don't know if that means something.
So he calls his wife by her code name and not his sidekick and son?
Well, Connor Hawke doesn't have a code name anymore.
Connor Hawke is Green Arrow.
Not anymore.
He's the Hawkeye, not the Hawkeye sort of thing.
But he hasn't been called Green Arrow in years. He's called Connor Hawke.
In this book, the clock has been reset. He's been called Green Arrow since Tuesday.
He's not called Green Arrow in the book, though. They call him Connor Hawke.
AKA Green Arrow.
Well, Roy Harper, aka Speedy, aka Arsenal, aka Red Arrow.
But then why is Black Canary, aka Dinah Lance? But you see, they flipped it, and that bothers me.
Yeah, no, that's a problem. I'm just saying he's not Green Arrow anymore. He was Green Arrow.
I think he is Green Arrow.
And I mean, yeah, it wasn't perfectly executed, but I thought it was a lot of fun and it was unexpected.
It was, like I said, when I say nitpick, I mean I put this second in the script because I liked it enough that it was almost pick of the week. I really enjoyed it. Those are legitimately nitpicks. Like, they weren't big deals. They were just things I bumped on a little bit while reading.
Have you stuck with Unstoppable Doom Patrol? Issue 2 came out this week.
I actually did read this issue, and I found it. I was surprised by this issue, maybe more so than issue 1.
I liked it more than issue 1.
You liked it more than issue 1 because there's no Batman? It's just a Doom Patrol issue, because there's a base cutaway. I'm just more. Well, the base cutaway always helps, but I just was more sort of comfortable in the world of these characters. I'm not a huge Doom Patrol fan, and also this is. Again, this is now they don't announce this usually before the second issue, but this is now a 6-issue miniseries. They get you with the issue 1 thinking it's going to be ongoing. But this was a pretty good base cutaway. It's a great base cutaway. So I think I just liked the story more. I liked them rescuing this kid. It felt very much like the X-Men, where they find this kid who has this weird, gross power, and they have to save him, and it doesn't go right. And we get the reveal about Peacemaker and him being the villain of the story. I thought the construction was really strong. I thought the character stuff came together better. I liked seeing the base. I liked Flex Mentallo being there. I'll say one thing. We talked last time. I was on the show when Doom Patrol number 1 came out, Unstoppable Doom Patrol. And we talked a little bit about how, like, Doom Patrol was DC's version of the X-Men before the X-Men was ever published. Mm-hmm. And they did the Jonathan Hickman X-Men text page in this. I know, that was a little strange. Did it annoy you, or did you think it was funny? I just go past. I mean, I don't even read them anymore in X-Men, so I just don't even register. I just go right past them. I was a little annoyed by it. I probably shouldn't have been, but I was like, oh, come on. Are we doing this? Are we really going to, like... It's very on the nose. It was a little too on the nose for me, personally. Yeah. Is what I felt. I mean, I liked... So in this one, there's a new chief. Chief was the guy who ran the team. He was the Professor Xavier in a wheelchair. And so he's been usurped by the new chief, who was the new chief was she's a member of Doom Patrol. I forgot who she is though, but she's a member of the Doom Patrol. And the old chief, who has always been kind of an asshole, is all he's trying to do is usurp her power and take back his role. I like that running, bit in the background. Like, I just thought this just did really well overall. The Chris Burnham art continues to be perfect for this kind of book.
it's weird. This is the non-glamorous side of superheroing, where all the people have strange, ugly powers.
The kid with the gross power, with like the slug entity that lives in its chest, and because I honestly couldn't, or in their chest, I couldn't tell if this was a male or female character, honestly. Yeah. And the kid explodes
because it turns out the kid isn't the meta; it's the slug.
I know, but the kid was also a member of Suicide Squad, the Task Force X.
Right. But it was just interesting that like they figured out the host wasn't the powerful person; it was the slug, and.
I was still bummed that a kid exploded.
Sure, but there was a great page where Cliff has to throw the kid into the sky before they explode.
It was definitely a riff on the fastball special.
Yeah, they really are just going for it here.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm not mad at that, but it's strange. And the Chris Burnham art is definitely helping.
I don't know if this was like this is an ongoing. I don't know if I still read it, but at 6 issues, I'll stick around for the whatever they're doing here. I think that's okay. I mean, Green Arrow, I'm more annoyed because I feel like Green Arrow should be an ongoing character. Doom Patrol's always been a tough sell in the market, so I'm not surprised it's a miniseries. But
I agree with that interpretation. I was when I didn't know that either of these were limited series before coming into this recording with you. So learning that Green Arrow was bummed me out. Learning that Doom Patrol was relief is the wrong word, but it meant like, oh, I feel like I can hang with this book if I know that there's an endpoint. I
swear to God, if next week we find out Shazam's a miniseries, I'm gonna have a big problem. Like, I don't know what's going on in DC.
So it sounds like I was gonna say it sounds like your list of problems with DC is continuing to grow.
Well, they're not publishing. We had this revelation a couple of episodes ago, and there was an email about there being fewer books, and we didn't think it was true until we looked at the numbers, and it turns out the DC is publishing a lot fewer books, and that's not great for anybody. But what can you do? Clobberin Time #2, Steve Skroce, his strange body horror Thing miniseries in which the Thing teams up with a different Marvel hero every issue. The first issue was who was the first issue?
Hulk.
Now we've got Logan, and I love this. I mean, I thought this was terrific.
You said issue 1 would have been your pick of the week. Would issue 2 have been your pick of the week?
I don't know. I didn't really think about it. It was one of those days where I didn't really have a lot of time to think, but it would have been in the discussion. Deep Cuts and Green Arrow and Clobberin Time were definitely all.
Did you enjoy social justice criticism of the Thing?
I did. It was nice to know that. No, I enjoyed that criticism of the students. It was nice to know that the mutant college students are just as annoying as the real ones in real life. So
the Krakoan college students are also yeah. Ben Grimm, much like Jerry Seinfeld, can't play colleges anymore because the kids are too sensitive.
Yeah. So I thought it was funny. Like he's in some sort of like he's giving a symposium, and he's got the turtleneck and the blazer. Like it's just it was very funny, and I like how Logan wasn't buying any of it, and I think they have a great relationship. The benefit of this is you can pair him up with these characters who they're his buddies, and Logan and Ben Grimm have a long-standing friendship in Marvel Universe.
They're his buddies, but they're also like on some level they're as tough as he is. So whatever scrape they get into, they can kind of both hang through the scrape, even if it's a bad enough scrape that they're both struggling to survive. Yeah, and here they run into that same guy again, his time traveling dude who is much stronger than he appears, and he really fucks them up. And there was some weird anatomy on some of the Logan stuff. There's I believe it's page 13 on your digital reader, where he's slicing off the guy's arm, but his other hand is like bent back in a really weird way.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's just swung with that arm and didn't hit anything.
These are just the things I notice when I'm reading. I like the big monster that he turned to with where you can see all of the tattoos that he has, and like because he was the bad guy was wearing like this full body suit, and so you couldn't see any of those tattoos before. But then when he like morphs into this giant monster, it almost looks like a Jim Henson Dark Crystal sort of monster. And then later when you see the guy turned back into a human, all those tattoos are still there, which I wasn't expecting. I thought the tattoos were part of him turning into a monster. I didn't realize he just had a bunch of douchey tattoos to start with.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He's in the future. He's got a bunch of tattoos that signify heroes, and he seems to know them. He says at one point to the Thing that you should never meet your heroes, and doesn't stop him from trying to kill them. He really fucks up Logan, in one of those great Wolverine ways where 3/4 of his body has been incinerated, so he's going to have to regrow. And I like the bit at the end where he tries to talk to
can't
Ben,
talk, yeah.
Can't talk. He's just like, it's like, okay, well, I'll text you later. But this book is just super fun. I mean, yeah, it's gross. And like there's a part that's shown on the cover where the guy wants to look under the hood for the thing. So he pops all of his rocks off, and we see the gooey underneath. And I was just like, ugh. But it's only one panel. And It's
Do you ever read Concrete by Paul Chadwick?
No. Yeah. But
Never
this is great.
Never mind then. Write in if you read Concrete and have opinions.
you can still say your point. There are probably listeners who have read Concrete, so it's okay.
It was it was a less body horror, but still wasn't without body horror at all. Philosophical exploration of a more philosophical explanation of what it would be like to actually be the Thing with a different origin story and all this other stuff. But really interesting book that I enjoyed quite a bit. And if folks have comments or questions about that discussion will go better if somebody writes in something to prompt the discussion. I won't get into it
on Concrete. All right. Well,
yeah. I'm soliciting questions.
We'll allow any concrete questions for Ryan's next appearance.
Concrete in your subject line.
So our long National Nightmare is over, and the run on the Hulk is completed. And
interesting. I have a different feeling about it.
Not a knock on Ryan Otley, who's been terrific art-wise, who did heroic work stepping in for the writing duties when Donny Cates had a family issue and left all the books he was working on. Couldn't have been easy to do that midstream. But I from the very beginning, I've only really been sticking around because I just love the way that Ryan Otley draws, and I thought looks great, but I just have had zero interest in this story. One or two issues I liked. There was a couple of fun ones. The first one he went on this planet was fun, but for the most part,
Godball.
Yeah, for the most part, I just so happy that this spaceship Hulk story is over, and I cannot wait to move on to a different take on Hulk.
I have a slightly different take. I had a few issues to catch up on this run leading up to this final issue, and I noticed the first issue I had to read this week to catch up, I think it was 11 or 12, and it said story by Donny Cates and Ryan Otley, and I was like, oh, are they doing this Marvel style? And then the next issue, it was just story and art by Ryan Otley. Donny Cates disappeared.
Yep.
As if he'd never been there. And I was like, what is going on here? And then there's a little short essay from Ryan Otley in the back, written in all caps, which I thought was a little on the nose. Yeah, I don't know. As much as the idea of Hulk being a spaceship didn't work for me, I also felt like they never explored that idea to the point where I knew what they were doing with it. So that never really manifested as like an actual story point. It was just a plot device to get Hulk to another planet where these other shenanigans could happen.
Well, he could be taken over by I think part of my problem is I don't know why we did it. And look, it may be a problem of the original writer who came up with the idea having to leave, but I just don't know what the point of it was. It didn't add anything to the character. It didn't have anything interesting to say necessarily. It was just seemed to be more like a cool idea. Like, what if the Hulk's body was a spaceship and the personality running it was like the captain in his head? Like, it just didn't seem like it was anything other than a cool idea, but didn't have any execution that really made any sense. Or, it just was weird.
Yeah, it was fun to see Ryan Otley and Cliff Rathburn team back up and do a just big bombastic book.
Oh yeah, I mean, if anyone's going to draw the Hulk, Ryan Otley did a great job on Spider-Man, but really, this is Invincible was like all big action all the time, and he's sort of made for that. This is giant Hulk monsters pounding on each other was a lot of fun to see in his hands.
I enjoyed this. I don't know that I got a lot out of it, but I enjoyed it all the way through. I was never reading this being like, oh, when is this going to be over? Like, I didn't have that reaction. I can't say like that I fully understood it, but I also felt like it kind of, I just let it sort of wash over me. Like, this is just the Rage Beast happening to me, not for me. I don't know.
I never dropped it. And it was mostly the art, but still, I was always hoping that would be something that would be revealed in this that like tells you something about the character or something interesting. It just, for me, never happened that way, but it is what it is. Not every run works. I'm looking forward to Philip Kennedy Johnson.
I thought the design of this Titan monster thing was kind of cool. Like, he's got volcanoes coming out of his back. I liked that. I did dig that. It
just was weird. And I need Doc Samson to not be a Hulk anymore.
Well, he's a Sasquatch.
Right, but he's like imbued with gamma rays, right?
He's a gamma Sasquatch, sure.
I just need him. I thought for sure, like when they were sucking the gamma out of people, I was like, okay, here's how we get Samson back, but no.
But he's not like, it's not a gamma irradiated Samson because Samson's already been gamma irradiated. This is Doc Samson who has switched bodies with Sasquatch, the Alpha Flight member.
This is no good.
I'm just telling you what happened in the reality of this world.
Yeah,
I'm just informing you.
Oh boy. All right. Well,
W0 old Tira33, I believe it's supposed to be pronounced World Tree. I'm going to go ahead and give this book preemptively the award for the hardest title to type since Shield, the book that was Shield that had the period between each letter.
uh-huh.
That was a tough book to type. This is an image book from James Tynion IV with Fernando Blanco on art and colors by Jordan Blair, letters by Aditya Bidikar, and it's a sci-fi horror book. It basically, did you read this, Connor?
No, definitely not.
It sort of feels like an episode of Black Mirror or that Warren Ellis book, Global Frequency. Did you ever read Global Frequency?
I didn't. I did not read Global Frequency.
Global Frequency, I really enjoyed. It was one and done issues, but they were always based around some sort of technological plot that was going to wreak havoc, and a team of people who there was who could be called upon to help solve the situation with their special tech powers.
I don't know why I didn't read it. That was like the one Warren Ellis book at the time I didn't read, and I don't have any good reason why I didn't.
It was an anthology series. Maybe you just hate anthologies.
No, I don't. I don't know what happened.
Well,
explanation.
Go back and check it out. It's not too late. It still exists.
We can still do it. We have the technology.
So this was a book about it's sort of okay. So it's sort of like Black Mirror meets Glass Onion. So maybe Black Onion was appropriate because it's like it's this tech thing that these people created back when they were young. So like sort of the same as the Glass Onion tech conglomerate, whatever. And it seems to be some sort of smartphone app that glitches people out of reality long enough to kill them.
Okay.
I don't entirely know what's going on in the story, but the art, I thought the art by Fernando Blanco was gorgeous. I thought this was an incredible looking book. And I thought the story was interesting. Like the way that this smartphone app like glitches people out of reality plays with like panel structure and panel integrity. Like the panels break as the people glitch in and out of time and space. And I don't know exactly how that's happening, but Black Mirror is a show I really enjoy. I realize it's very nihilistic and not an uplifting show to watch. But
no, it's not.
I thought as a premise of just like, there's something, there's also a movie. Oh, I think I've talked about this movie on the show before. It's called like Terminus or something like that, where there's like a zombie virus that transmits through like cell phone and TV signals. But there was enough there on the initial high concept premise of just like, there's this kid who thinks that he has to like expose people to this app and then kill them. And then he gets locked up and his brother is upset. And then this woman shows up and she's naked. And then there's like a monster thing. And I don't know. I don't have a lot of words to put to this without, I'm spoiling a lot of what happens in issue 1, but I also feel like issue 1 is setting up a lot of big ideas that I hope come to fruition. And I feel like James Tynion IV is a writer who has really, for me at least, turned a corner where a lot of his early stuff didn't connect with me. And that's not a criticism of him or his writing. Like I just felt, that this was a younger comic writer who was still finding his voice. And the last couple of series he's done, The Closet, Blue Book, this book, they're now he and I are vibing, and I'm getting whatever he's putting out there. I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. I'm into this. So
did you read The Last House on the Lake?
No, I didn't. Should I pick that up?
I don't know. I don't think so. I read half of it, and it didn't seem to be going anywhere.
Well, I'm liking this, and I'm liking the fact that I'm I think we often get accused of not liking comics, even though we do a show about them. So I want to just make sure that I'm on record as a guy who like wasn't quite on board with whatever James Tynion IV was doing even a couple years back, but recently, like everything he's doing is hitting for me, and I'm
great.
I'm excited about it. It makes me happy.
Well, that's good because he's putting out a lot, which is great. He's one, much like our next writer has.
Give me those
tons of
tiny
ideas.
Onions.
Tons and tons of ideas. The Ambassadors #3, the first issue that's not pick of the week. And this is rare art by the legendary Travis Charest, which is mostly why I want to talk about this. But I do want to say that we're 3 issues in out of 6, I believe. Is it 6?
I don't know.
I believe it's usually 6. Something's got to happen. Like I really like this book, and I agree with both picks of the week. And I thought this was another good issue, but this feels more paced like a 12-issue miniseries than a 6. And also, if I can level a criticism of Mark Miller lately, it's that I feel like his books have wrapped up very quickly. Like, he spent a lot of time on laying the groundwork, and then all of a sudden the story's over. That happened with that James Bond book.
Yes, it did.
With the old retired spy, where the first couple issues were terrific. He's laying all this fun groundwork, and then all of a sudden it just sort of wrapped up very quickly because he ran out of room, which is funny because it can be as long as he wants it to be. But I think this is 6, and we're 3 issues in. We're still meeting new heroes. This one's all about the hero of France. And it was really, as an issue, really fun. And I thought the ending was powerful, but I got to the end and I was like, do we only have 3 left? Like, what are we doing here?
I also think I enjoyed this as well, and I love the Travis Charest art, and I agree with you. I would like to figure out what the bigger picture is. And I think that, like, they pointed out in issue 1 that this is a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory scenario.
Yeah.
And so to, like, literally have corporate espionage people showing up asking the people who got the golden tickets, like, it's a little on the nose, right? Like, you didn't have to point out that this was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in your own first issue. No one asked you to do that. So, like, the fact that you now have the other side coming to these heroes and being like, hey, if you're willing to give up your golden ticket or steal secrets for us, we'll give you. Yeah.
There were great bits in here, though. I loved the bullies who were all into Warhammer. That was a funny bit.
Right, just the idea that the kid gets beat up by other dorks.
Yeah, like he gets bullied by the Warhammer kids, and then the whole thing is he planning some sort of mass shooting situation, and his single mom who is the hero, and they end up being sort of like a French Batman and Robin, like almost like the '60s version almost.
Codename France and Paris.
Yeah, but they have a car, they've got a bat cave, she's got a sidekick. So and then there's the Biff Pow smash, like they're very much the Batman and Robin of France. And then, they're like, no, he was never going to do anything. He was just acting out. He was just expressing his frustration. But then the last bit that we only see that no one else sees is that he had a gun and he tosses it into the sun. And
just a reminder to our American listeners, this is France, so not everyone just has those. Like, you're not given them when you show up at school.
Right. You're not issued a gun.
Like, it's hard to get a gun, especially when you're young, like under 18. So
I thought this was really well done and beautiful. I mean, I don't even, we talked about this last time. I don't know the last time I saw Travis Charest do interiors, but it's been probably 20 years. He's just terrific. He even way better than he was 20 years ago. I know he's been doing I know he lives a lot on commissions and things like that. Makes a lot of money doing that, but man, I don't know. He's so good. It's just unusual style, really, European, lived in backgrounds, a really, realistic world. This is very recognizably Paris.
Yeah, I mean it's got some Tony Harris in it, like in terms of like the big expressions, and the acting is like really feels like people. When I say Tony Harris, I mean like Tony Harris does a lot of photo referencing, not photo tracing, but photo referencing, where people are actually like posing in the ways that he's drawing them. So like I felt like all the ways that people were having their big emotions and big movements felt realistic, even though they're using superpowers. It's like, oh, but that is actually how a person would stand or move or shift, in that moment. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to see what we have for Olivier Coipel next issue.
But the cover, if Olivier Coipel's doing the cover, it's suggesting a rougher, looser Coipel style.
Well, we'll see.
I hope so. I mean, I'm excited by that. Like it was to me, I was like, ooh, that the cover doesn't immediately strike me as Coipel, and so I'm really excited to see what that ends up looking like.
I mean, the most impressive thing about Mark Millar is I mean, the descriptor for him was he was like the modern day Stan Lee. Now a lot of people bristled about that because that's for obvious reasons, but he seems to have a font of ideas that just is untappable. Like it just keeps going, and it's impressive. He keeps putting out books. They're all different, and this one may be a take on Willy Wonka, but at least it's an idea. It's really interesting that he keeps coming up with all this stuff. And it's impressive.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't always work, and this has so far worked really well. My concerns about the length aside, and I don't know that it's 6. I think that's what I read.
This is a book I would actually, when I worked in a freelance capacity for Marvel, one of the things I had to do was read scripts for books that we then did like some AR app stuff to augment them, and sometimes I'd interview creators and things like that. So like there's this era of Marvel books where I've maybe read more scripts for those books than I've read actual issues. Mm-hmm. And this is a book where I actually kind of want to see the script, because there are things that happen in this book where I'm just like, oh, I actually would love to know like Was Sheree bringing that idea to the
Right.
table? Was Mark Miller bringing that idea to the table? Especially the way the car works in this issue, the Batmobile, for lack of a better term, the way it like morphs to the needs of the users. There's one point they're trying to stop a train, and like the rear spoiler of the car morphs into like a holder to hold the front of the train. I'm like, oh, that's just a cool idea. Like it gets back to what you're saying about like Mark Miller or Travis Sheree, or the collaboration between the two brings us so much to the table that you don't get in any other book. So it's really, really awesome.
I mean, it's terrific. And I just confirmed it while you were talking that it is a 6-issue miniseries. So I'm a little interested. The next issue better, something better happen besides just meeting another hero, unless they're going to like do a Jupiter's Legacy thing where it's the first 6 issues and then we're doing another.
There was a one panel where Codename France and Paris were making a snowman with Codename India. Very much in the background. So like if we're getting little hints of how these characters are going to come together, I agree we need a little more than a single panel with no dialogue, but hopefully we get there.
We just need a story. I mean, it's interesting, the idea of these characters getting powers, and that's all. I'm enjoying the character study aspect. Each issue has been really good in that sense, but what is the overall story here? What are we doing? And if it's just to get to issue 6 to then lead to another miniseries and when they're all together, okay, fine. But I don't know I just don't know
what if the Korean woman reveals that she's got a candy that you can suck on forever and it never goes away?
Then great. If she does the top hat roll to a bounce, great, awesome. Let's do it.
She should have done that with her introduction.
She should have. Strange Academy Finals, number 24 or number 6. This is the final issue of Strange Academy. And I'm glad for this book. We talked about it a lot. It was pick of the week several times. It was the same creative team of Scotty Young, Humberto Ramos, Edgar Delgado, and Clayton Cowles the whole way through. It had a very cohesive look and feel. The characters were really fun. It had a sad, bittersweet ending because this was the sort of final battle between, I think it's Laura was her name. Well, she looks like a Laura, just sort of the normal Midwestern brunette girl.
I haven't been reading this book, so you're sorry.
Who turned out to be the bad guy versus the son of Dormammu, and who turned out to be the hero. And then one of the kids dies in the process. Like it just was. We reached the end. These kids literally went through hellfire to survive, and it ends with them opening the door for a new class, and the end for now. And in the essay in the back they say this is it for the book for now. And I'm surprised it went this long because it's not really a big crowd pleaser. There's not tons of big heroes in it. There's Brother Voodoo and Scarlet Witch a little bit and Magic a little bit. For the most part, it's about these new characters and these new kids. And people talk all the time, why can't they launch 2 characters? Well, because when they do, people don't buy the books. So I'm glad it went as long as it did. This was a really fun, refreshing title. It felt like it added something to the Marvel Universe. I don't often enjoy the Magic side of things, but this sort of straddled the line enough of a young kid's coming of age high school drama that's also full of magic. It's sort of Harry Potter in the Marvel Universe, but not really, but sort of.
I've been reading issues. I'm just way, way behind. I started reading it when you guys were first talking about how great it was. I just haven't kept up enough to ever be part of the discussion.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And if I took a step back and listed my favorite Marvel books, this during the time it was published is probably in my top 5 in terms of Marvel comics. It's I really enjoyed it. Both Josh and I are really big fans of it. And bummer it's gone, but I get it. And 24 issues is not nothing. So
no, it's not
these days. So congratulations to Strange Academy Finals. Great job from Scotty Young, Humberto Ramos. I'm so glad he drew the whole book. He's such a great artist, and I love he actually draws kids as kids and teenagers, and his crazy panel layouts and giant packed full of detail and crazy demons and fire and brimstone really made the look of the book. And I can't even imagine.
Humberto Ramos is one of my favorite artists of all time. Like he's especially he did amazing. I was going to say an amazing run on Spectacular Spider-Man, which is confusing. I should not have used that adjective, but
I can't imagine someone else drawing it, and if it did, it may not have as much impact. Like it really was perfect for him, and I've always been a fan of his, so I was glad to see him on this book. And there you go. Those are the books we wanted to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron of the show gets to vote to add a book to the rundown and make sure we don't miss it. And this week it was a tight race between 2 books. The second place book was Green Arrow #1, and the first place book, the patron pick, was Deep Cuts #1, which is also the pick of the week.
Yeah, and so Connor is always very good about updating me on text about like which books are in the lead for the patron pick, and I had Deep Cuts and Green Arrow on my stack. I would have probably read Green. I would have definitely read Green Arrow. I maybe wouldn't have read Deep Cuts, but Deep Cuts ended up just being the one that really spoke to me, and I was really excited to get to talk about it more in depth with Connor.
So let's rate it. Ratings for Deep Cuts.
4.75.
4.75 out of 5. I'm going to go.
I'm not an automatic 5 stars for the pick like you are.
We're all different. We're all different. I'm a 4.5 on this book. Really, really terrific. If you didn't check it out, I would say do so. And we are both sticking with it based on the conversation we had earlier.
And I think Green Arrow would have gotten a 4.5. So I think I really did sort of used the patron voting to guide, at least the patron rankings that we get based on the votes to guide sort of my self to a final decision here. So
good job. Good job, patrons. Good job, Ryan. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go. Every patron votes to add a book to the rundown or can vote. And those are the people that help support the show directly. They unlock tons of shows for people to enjoy. The Booksplode and Talksplode shows that we do, the Mediasplode show, all those shows were unlocked by the patrons directly tied to their support. So thanks for doing so. Consider becoming one today. It's a fun group. It's a great community. They've got a Discord server. They have a Facebook group. We have a monthly patron hangout.
Do we? Oh, I guess you have the hangout, but you didn't have the happy hour.
We didn't have the happy hour this week because I was sick, but we did unveil.
Now I'm sick. So look what you did, Connor.
Exactly. We did unveil this week. Well, we had the patron hangout last week. We did unveil our newest feature, which was Ron and I figured out how to make it into a call-in show. So we had some of the patrons call in, like it was talk radio.
Well,
and we discussed a myriad of topics. It was a lot of fun. And we had a good time. We had a really good time. In fact, we went a little bit long because we were having such a good time doing it. So we won't do it every month like that, but we'll every few months, maybe we'll do a full call-in show. But it was a lot of fun. So if you consider being a patron, patreon.com/iFanboy is where you can do it. iFanboy.threadless.com is where you can buy our t-shirts or other sundry items, the bath mat, the skateboard deck, all kinds of things. You can get the logo. The various logos we got 12 different logos on there, and you can find them all at fm@threadless.com.
If you had to define the word sundry.
We did it a while ago, and I don't remember.
All right.
It's like
I cut you off while you were giving the URL to plug. That was I was a terrible co-host in that moment. I apologize.
But, what was the URL? iFanboy.threadless.com is the place to go for those things. Sundry items. I'm looking it up and cheating. It's items that are not important enough to differentiate.
Of various kinds.
Yeah. Which is a good way to describe the Threadless store. There's lots of things there.
But they're not
all important. They're all important. I just don't have the time. iFanboy.com/support is our PayPal digital tip jar. iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can find the general Amazon link as well as all the books from our Booksplode shows, which has just been updated, so you can see all the books there. And bookshop.org is our partner that helps local bookstores, and you can find links there where appropriate on the website. And please consider using them to buy your books so local bookstores can survive and thrive. And also, if you're a patron to $5 or high level, we salute you by giving you a superpower live on the show. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's dumb. We can make no promises. But this week, we'll find out because Ryan's going to bestow one on this dude.
I am going to bestow a patron power on Geoff Cuddy, which is that's a good name. Solid name.
It is a good name.
All right, I have a 2-word patron power. Are you ready?
Yep.
Geoff can cryosleep.
Geoff can cryosleep. What does that mean?
Well, we've all watched a ton of sci-fi.
I know what cryosleep is. What is that? How's that? What does that mean for him?
It means upon his own, it's completely self-controlled. Like there's no external thing controlling it. But Geoff, when Geoff desires to not just be part of the world anymore, he can lower his body temperature to freezing levels and just sleep he can sort of set the internal timer before he does it. So he says I need a week.
So does he go into like hibernation? Is it like does he stop aging? Like what are we talking about?
He absolutely. So it's a more sophisticated form of hibernation. Hibernation would just be sort of you're still aging when you hibernate. You're still your metabolism's still running. Like he fully shuts down and gets down to like a freezing temperature. Like his body is cold to the touch. Like he's an ice cube.
So could he theoretically be like, I'm just going to do this for 1,000 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
No, and would suffer other than like there might be like a little more grogginess on the wake up after 1,000 years than like a year.
Sure,
But like, there's no ill effects. Like, unless his body is destroyed through other means, like he might want to like hide himself. Like he might want to get himself buried or something. But as long as
do his muscles atrophy? Does like
no.
Nothing? Wow.
It's like it is like the pure sci-fi, you know.
Sure.
Put him in the like. So in all the sci-fi stories, they always have to like get into like a coffin-like thing with like a glass panel, like a back-to-tank sort of thing. But he doesn't have to do that. He would be wise to do that because it would provide an extra layer of protection. But he could literally do it just lying down in his bed for 1,000 years. He just has to make sure that his bed is there for 1,000 years.
Sure. And that sounds like some good sleep, Geoff.
Yeah. He's super well rested. He's just going to wake up in the Idiocracy world. That's the problem.
so like, I don't know. In like 2016, it could have been like, you know what? I'm going down for 4 years. Wake me up in 4 years.
Yeah, he could have.
He'd be so much more well-adjusted than the rest of us. Thanks, Geoff, for being a patron. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That was an awesome power, Ryan. Good job. You can get your own awesome power by becoming a patron at the $5 or higher level. And thanks to everyone who does so. We got time for at least one email here.
We might have time for both.
Probably. This is the one I mentioned earlier. Zach C. from Indianapolis, Indiana. Zach says, DC recently announced a new creative team on The Flash, Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato, with a press release announcing a turn towards cosmic horror for the series. This is a huge departure from where the series is now and reflects basically nothing in the history of the character. Is there another big two character you'd love to get an upside down or backwards genre take on? Sci-fi Wonder Woman, The Thing, and high fantasy? And this is, I mean, there's a million answers to this question. Like, you could take any character and put them in any scenario. I think it's interesting when they do it. Like this week, you know, I would not have guessed a sci-fi Green Arrow, even though it's not like out of the realm of possibility. Green Arrow is a superhero who exists in the DC universe. He's certainly been in sci-fi scenarios. It's almost, at a certain point, it becomes improbable that Green Arrow wouldn't have more sci-fi stories if they actually lived in that world. But that's not really. I know that's not really the question. I mean, I would point to. I think it's interesting jumping off point. I mean, like Green Arrow is, you know, he's a street level character, and in my head, he's always the character from Mike Grell's pre-Vertigo run. But you know, he also was a Justice League member who worked on a satellite. So he's, you know, but it's still like enough where I read it, and I was like, oh shit! And the same thing happened when Tom King did the basically sci-fi Western, you know, story for Supergirl a few years ago. And we talked about it recently with the Doom Came to Gotham Batman animated movie, where it's putting Batman in a Prohibition era Gotham. You know, that's and I think one of the conclusions we came to in that episode is that like Batman is a character who is especially well suited to a genre bending reimagining. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be character to character, because like when I read this question, I think about, you know, the Thing in high fantasy. I don't know, maybe that would work, maybe it wouldn't. But like Swamp Thing in high fantasy, hell yeah! And we're getting like a high fantasy take on the DC universe with the Tom Taylor book, Knights, Dark Knights of Steel.
Whereas like I think about something. I think about somebody like Peter Parker. They've done like there was that horror book, the Spider-Man horror book.
Yep.
That wasn't bad, but I don't know that it quite worked for the character as well.
They did Spider-Man Noir. Like I'm of the opinion that you can probably take any character and probably put them in any scenario, and if the writing is good, it will work. But
Conan Noir.
I mean, they just said we basically just did Superman high fantasy, right? The whole Warworld story was basically that. So yeah, that's true. Well, that was very much I would say it was less high fantasy. That was more swords and sandals. Sure, but like those genres are very similar. Yeah, I mean you could even make the case that the brief time when they took Wonder Woman and put her in the Asgardian story was a very different sort of genre for her. Like I think you can do anyone and any character in any type of keep it clean. Anyone and any. I'm gonna. The cold medicine's kicking in. Any character in any scenario, and if the writing is strong, you can do it. And you know, I could pick random one and say that'd be fun. But they'd all be fun. And I think part of the fun is the surprise element. And well, right now in Chip Zdarsky's run, the issue 10 came out today. Daredevil, who's one of the more like strictly street level Marvel characters, has superpowers, you know, gifted to him by the hand or the fist. I can't even keep straight which organization he's the head of, but you know, he's got mystical powers and he's leading a ninja cult and all these with Elektra as his bride wife of magical mystical wife queen. Yeah, wife queen. So you know, you can do it. I think the question becomes like, are you trying to make it part of the character's
story in continuity, and I know continuity is a malleable concept that especially we who do iFanboy are not like beholden to any one continuity forever, but like, are you trying to say that this horror story is part of Peter Parker's actual life, or are we doing a riff on it using a departure from that? It sounds like what they're doing with the Flash is they're taking the in continuity character and doing a huge departure on it. And I can see why that might ruffle feathers more than like an Elseworlds story.
The only departure is he's going off. I mean, I don't know. I didn't read the press release and the book hasn't come out yet. But, if he goes off into some situation that requires what happened, then that's fine with me. I mean, it's like the Green Arrow, the story, or the Superman and Warworld story, or whatever. It's like if you put him in a different scenario, we know that eventually they'll come back to basics. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think as comic fans, I would hope that as we as a community mature, we recognize that, like, let people tell whatever stories they want. If those stories don't work, they kind of get pruned from the tree of whatever the official continuity is,
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's part of the process. That's a good thing. But like Sci-Fi Wonder Woman, I have no problem with Sci-Fi Wonder Woman. I don't know that I can think of an example where they've done that, but like Green Lantern in particular is one that they've gone like harder sci-fi versus softer sci-fi. Yeah. And
they did a whole Marvel Western series many years ago, 1861, 41. What was it?
Yeah, that was a great series.
I think these characters are all so resilient that you can put them in all kinds of scenarios. And like Ryan, you just said, there's full on Elseworlds, and then there's also like take the character and put him in a scenario, and that's what you've got now with Flash, and that's what you got now with Green Arrow, and they're all strong enough to survive all those things. And so there you go. Good email. Chris K. You read this Chris K email.
Chris K writes in to say, about a decade ago, I started losing my hair. Nothing major at first, but thanks to genetics, I always knew that I was looking down the barrel of a full Costanza. Increasingly, over the last couple of years, I've been thinking of shaving my head for that reason and others. Scheduling haircuts is a pain. I don't like the way my hair looks sometimes since it's getting so thin, etc. How or why did you, Connor, know when it was time to shave your head? And is there anything I need to know going into it? Should I do it before a long vacation in case it looks bad and I want to try to grow some back? Should I baby step into it and buzz cut it, or just jump bald spot first and shave it all off? Any advice is appreciated. Again, I can't begin to thank you both enough for the endless hours of enjoyment you and your show have brought into my life.
I should have left in the part where he said this is for Connor, but I instinctively took it off, and then it was a little confusing.
As your shoulder length hair co-host reads this email, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, so this is not a problem that either Ryan or Josh and both of their luxurious, long, thick heads of hair have to worry about, but not so much me. I feel your pain, Chris, and I shaved my head when I was 23 because I knew, much like he does, knowing the genetic barrel he was looking down, it was coming anyway, so I just decided to get ahead of it. So what did I know? When and how did I know it was time? Well, I used to have a thick, luxurious head of hair in my younger days, but then, in my early 20s, I noticed it wasn't quite as thick as it once was. And then quite literally I went to a family reunion and looked around the room and saw nothing but male pattern baldness. And I went, all right. And then, it was just one day when I was 23, I got out of the shower and I looked in the mirror, and, when your hair is wet, it gets thinner. And I really could kind of see it. And I just went, fine. And I've had a beard for so long. I had beard, beard trimmer, hair trimmer that I was using to trim my beard. And my brother was living with me at the time, and I woke him up. It was like 2 a.m. on like a Saturday. And I said, we're going to shave my head, but I need you to do it because my hand was shaking because, it was still a major thing to do. And so he shaved my head, and I've never looked back. I started with the buzz, as he mentioned here. I didn't go full, smooth head initially. I just buzzed it as short as humanly possible. And then like 6 months later, I was visiting a friend in Boston, and my car blew a tire. And so I had to stay longer than I expected to stay. And so I didn't have my buzzer. And so I asked him if I could just borrow his razor, and I, bicked my head clean, and I have been doing that ever since. So it's been 21 years of me shaving my head at this point. Most people in my life have never seen me with hair, other than my family and Josh and Ron, because we went to college together. But most people in my life have never seen me with hair. And that's partially why I did it, was I remember reading some dumb article. It was like, if you think you're going to lose your hair, the best thing to do is to do it early. That way, you sort of not bury the old person, but the people you meet will never know any difference. So that's kind of how it's been for me. But I would say just go for it. If you think it's what you want to do and you don't like the way you look, then do it. If you like the way you look and you're fine with it, then don't do it. But it's just hair. The thing is, it'll grow back. Like if you do it and you're horrified and your family's horrified, then you'll wear hats for a couple of months and then you'll be fine again. So I don't know. You've probably zoned completely out because you don't have to worry about this.
Well, I mean, I went gray in high school. Or I started going gray, but I know that's a different problem.
That's the best way to do it, though. The same thing. Early shave my head. If you go silver fox, if you're the young guy with gray hair, that's cool.
I know, but now I'm approaching the age where I'm like the guy who like should have some gray hair, but I have way more gray hair, and it's long because I haven't gotten a haircut since March 2020. But are you still not getting a haircut? I still have not gotten.
What does your wife think about that?
I think she's kind of into it.
Okay, then that's fine.
But it's not about her. It's about my buddy Abe that I'm playing haircut chicken with. He also hasn't gotten a haircut, and his locks are even thicker, longer, and more luxurious with less gray.
She could strangle you in your sleep because you won't get a haircut. He can't.
Wow, a release. That sounds nice.
Sweet release. So I will say I really do miss getting my haircut. I know he says it here that the hassle of getting haircuts, but like I used to love getting my haircut.
Dude, the guy who cut my hair here in DC, all we would do was talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Marvel movies when I got my haircut. It was great, but I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in a while, and Marvel movies aren't as good anymore, so I'm not missing that.
I used to go to a series of old school New York City barbers.
Love that.
And in fact, there was this one guy who was so old school. When he died, he had a full page obituary in the New York Times. Like he didn't let anyone in. He kept the door locked, and he would only let in his regulars. And he used to shave Yul Brynner's head. It was the only head he ever shaved. He wouldn't shave anybody else's head. Like he was one of those old school guys.
I would say, I mean, to the extent that I'm allowed to even contribute to this question, I think the thing that I think about in like my look and how my look has changed as I've gotten older and as my body has, as I've become a COVID era dad bod. Like if you just own the way you look, and if you are like, yeah, this is how I look, isn't it awesome? People respond to that pretty positively.
Like confidence is the ultimate thing, but also if you don't like the way you look, then do something about it. Like that's right. What I didn't like the way it was going, so I did something about it. I'm much happier now, but it doesn't mean you have to. Like my brother for 2 years never shaved his head.
I know, but what I might say is like the day you decide to shave your head, maybe also go buy like a new pair of pants and a shirt that you look really good in, and just like own it, like feel really good about it. Like it's, Connor and I we're the Queer Eye for comic book fans. Like we will help you love the way you look in your new skin.
You like the way you look, we guarantee it. That's Men's Warehouse. So,
and like it's having confidence in your look, which is really hard after a haircut. Like
trust me, after doing this,
what's this? Define this.
Shave my head. After shaving my head, I was freaked out.
I would be too.
Like it's a major change, and it's not like as guys, and my hair wasn't the kind of hair where you could do a lot with it. It just kind of was there. So like there wasn't a whole lot I could do with my hair. So it's pretty much the same from 23 years. So, or however many years when I started growing hair. But that's a major change. It's not like women who can cut their hair really short or grow it really long. There's a lot more they can do with it. So the shock was much more greater. But after a while, it was fine. And once my mom got over it, that was fine too. She
it's her genetics.
She did not know. No, it was my dad's genetics actually. But actually, no, you're right. But no, it's a mix. It's a mix. I did a lot of reading on it when it started happening. I'm one of those people that dove deep into the
shocking.
But I totally sympathize with having a lot of questions and being scared. But just jump in. And if you don't, again,
I do too.
If you don't like it, like I said, then you wear a hat for 2 months, and then your hair grows back. And
I mean, I would say you either way, you can't take it with you. Like, just jump off the cliff, do something, own your decision, because as Connor once said to me, "Hey, sometimes you make a bad decision.
Sometimes you make a bad decision, and that's fine too."
And that's what Connor said to me, and that's why I'm married today.
I grew a COVID beard.
That's true. Connor's laughing. That is a true story.
I know it's true.
I know it's true, but does Chris know?
I grew
Chris,
a COVID beard.
call
It was
me,
a bad
Chris.
decision, and I did it.
No, disagree. Loved your COVID beard. Miss your COVID beard. I still have my COVID beard. Chris, call me. I'll tell you the full story of Connor telling me to make bad decisions, and we'll go from there.
So here are the questions. Why and how? That's basically why I decided it was going to happen. I'd get ahead of it. Should I do it before a long vacation in case it looks bad? I mean, there's no good or bad time. Just do it if you feel like you want to try it. Should I baby step into it and buzz cut it? Sure, if you want. That's what I did. I shaved it at the lowest possible setting, so it was kind of like a stubble on my head for a couple months. But ultimately, when I look back on it, I think I looked better when it was fully shaved as opposed to the stubble. Probably because I was still shaving my face at the time and looked weird. But that's it. I fully support it. I think whatever makes you happy with the way you look, whatever makes you happy when you look in the mirror. If you don't like the way you look now, try it. If you like
it can't be that bad, according to Alanis Morissette.
Right, and the thing is, if you don't like the shave, then it grows back, and you're back to where you were before. And no harm, no foul. You're just going to
ignore my amazing Alanis Morissette pull.
Thanks for writing in, Chris. We appreciate all questions, not just comics related questions. We will give you advice on life and fashion and hairstyles as well.
Yeah.
So Josh and Ryan, they don't have to worry about it.
I have other worries.
Lustrous heads of hair.
I have other worries.
Josh will never fail to point out his thick, lustrous head of hair.
I won't. I'm not that guy.
It's a good head of hair. You both have good heads of hair. You should count yourselves lucky.
Gray
is cool, man. Contact at iFanboy.com. You can write us in there. Also, for a Media Explode show, you just put Media Explode in the subject line, and that's how we do it. Here's some quick plugs. Our extra shows. 2 weeks ago, we had our Media Explode show where we talked about D&D Honor Among Thieves. That's Dungeons and Dragons for those who are not in the know. We also ranked the films of Quentin Tarantino, and that was a lot of fun for people of a certain age. And this past week, right behind the show, we had our Talksplode interview show with Marvel editor Jordan White. Josh talked to him about his career.
Jordan D. White.
Jordan P. or D? D? D. Jordan D. White. And they talked about his career as a Marvel editor, and that was interesting and fun. Check that out on the feed right behind this show. And then, not this week, but next week sees the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and some form of iFanboy staff will review it. Who that is yet is undecided, and when that will come out is also undecided. And then we will go from there as we see. Then we get Spider-Man, and then we get Flash, and there's a lot the next couple of months, but we'll figure it out. Ryan?
Flash is intriguing to me.
Science, sort of.
Oh, yeah, Flash is also made of science. I do a show called Science Sort of. You can find that at sciencesort.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
What are you talking about these days? What's your last episode about? Your most recent episode?
Let's see. What episode did... Oh, God. That's a good and fair question that I'm... Oh no, I'm freaking out. I'm blanking. What are we talking about? I have a rogue co-host right now who just goes off the deep end and doesn't talk about what I want to talk about. I'm getting a book shipped to me. This might interest you, Connor.
Okay.
I'm getting a book shipped to me to review on the show coming up about the science of spin, all about rotational forces.
Oh.
Everything from like the way that our galaxy spins, the solar system spins, to the tires in your car spin.
I had this is not appropriate for this show.
Connor, we did talk about the T-Rex's lips story.
Oh, cool.
Per your suggestion.
I like that story.
Yeah.
And where did you land on that story?
Probably lips.
You think so, right?
Got to cover those teeth. Got to cover those chompers.
So the question is, did they have lipstick?
Probably. I mean, no, they literally could not have because they could not reach their own mouths.
Right. So maybe they had to do it for each other. Like one person held it, one T-Rex held in their lips, the other one did it.
That's dangerous. Putting your chompers putting your neck that close to the other T-Rex's jaws. It seems risky.
I was watching a story in 60 Minutes recently about the satellite that they launched. And all these amazing photos.
The T-Rexes launched a satellite?
Yeah, the T-Rexes had satellite capabilities. We didn't really realize that until recently. But
that's upsetting.
All those amazing photos that have come out in the last year from the deep in the galaxy, and I had one of those really visceral.
They're all made up.
Real visceral, like, what the fuck is even the universe moments, and I was not high. Like I had one of those like, what the hell are we doing? Why is any of this happening? And then I had to come down.
You're in California. You can get high if you want.
I didn't say I didn't want to. I just said I wasn't at the time, and I was just saying, why is any of this a thing? And then I had to come down. I had to calm myself down.
Well, would it calm you down to know that you can get iFanboy's library of over 1,200 shows and counting?
Actually, it's
over
1,300.
iFanboy.com.
I gotta update the script, but yeah, 1,300.
Well, I'm reading the script as presented to me.
Yep.
1,300 shows and counting over at iFanboy.com, wherever other podcasts are sold. Follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show even comes out sometimes. And for the best weekend panels, you can follow us individually. CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, Jay Flanagan on Instagram, and Ryan Haupt on Instagram.
Let me correct that. The pick of the week is almost always posted. It's the panels that are sometimes posted.
Reading the script. Getting a lot of criticism for reading the script.
You had the commas in the wrong place. The show comes out and comma sometimes comma the best of the weekend panels, not the other way around.
All right, fair enough.
It's fair enough. Where are we? Okay, youtube.com/iFanboy. That's where you can find this show, as well as all of our old video shows. You can see Ryan even in, I think, in at least one of those shows. Aren't you in one of those Comic-Con shows?
No, we discussed that previously. I never made it on camera.
You weren't in the Comic-Con shows?
No, I was never on camera.
I think you were the only one.
Sorry.
Everyone else did.
And yet I'm still here. The curse of being on iFanboy camera.
Mike was dancing. Jim was scowling. Paul
You haven't heard any of them for years, but here I am, persisting.
Anyway, those are all there. You can find those. And you can consider leaving a review, a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, not only for iFanboy, for Science Sort of, or any show you listen to. The best way to thank your favorite podcast is to give them a rating and a review. It helps the algorithm, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-ruling, soon-to-be AI-driven algorithm. Probably already is. It's too late now. We've opened the door. It's too late. Hey, that's it. That's it for this week's show.
Bye.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the comics discussion. I enjoyed the hair care discussion. I enjoyed all of it.
I did too.
I'm going to go take off this sweatshirt because it was a poor choice in this hot room. And you're going to go lay down because you're sick. And we'll talk to you next week. And I'm Connor.
And I'm Ryan.